FMR Radio live from the European Conference on Harm Reduction in Basel.
Radio FMR. Radio FMR.
Oui, ici Mindy pour la radio éphémère. Bonjour. On arrive à notre troisième et dernière.
Hi, this is Mindy for FMR Radio. We're arriving at our third and last step in Basel. We're still here.
Là. Nous avons rencontré des personnes.
We met people from different horizons, and we're still hungry for more. But it's ephemeral, as we say. There were a lot of very interesting people, and I'm going to leave you in good company with these people.
Rencontré pas mal de gens très intéressants. Bah voilà, je vais vous laisser en compagnie de ces quelques personnes ou ces trois personnes. On verra bien ce qu'il y a.
Voilà, c'est devant moi Daniel Weber pour la radio éphémère ici à Bâle pour la conférence de réduction des risques.
Hello, this is Daniel Weber for FMR Radio in Basel at the Harm Reduction Conference. I'm with Monsieur Fabrice Olivier from France, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more of the Drug Users Association that you represent.
Elliot Alberts, j'ai cru voir, qui est le représentant de l'Association internationale des usagers. Donc,
so I think that you already spoke to Elliot Albert from the International Association of Drug Users. So when you say international association, it means that there are national associations as well. And in fact, the international network was created, starting with national associations in the 90s, at the time of the AIDS epidemic. A certain number of drug users got together, and it's important to say that it's a pretty historical story. It's over 20 years old. There's even a generation behind us with people like Jean Mordon, the historical leaders that died of this disease and who passed the torch to us.
Et qui nous ont passé le flambeau. Et donc à Sud,
and so ASUD, which is the association that I run, was one of these pilot associations. There was also YES in Germany, that you'll maybe see. So about half a dozen associations, also in Australia, and then over the years became more institutionalized, that sort of fell into line.
Et qui se sont au fil des années institutionnalisés. Disons qu'ils sont rentrés dans le rang, puisqu'au départ, c'était très, un peu...
In the beginning, it was very activist for the idea of surviving, as simple as that. And afterwards, we got more organized to be in opposition to what we call the war on drugs. Because as drug users, this is our principal objective, is to be recognized as citizens and to fight against the penalization of drug use.
C'est d'être reconnu comme citoyen et donc de lutter contre la pénalisation de l'usage. Bon, alors néanmoins, pour être...
But to be institutionalized, we entered into the Harm Reduction Network, and that's why we're here. We're even, you could say, at the origin of harm reduction, because in the beginning, harm reduction means that drug users have to be active for it to work. Clean needles, it's drug users that use them. Treatments, it's also drug users that use them.
Les traitements de substitution, c'est les usagers qui s'en emparent. Contrairement à ce qu'on vous dire tous les médecins vont vous dire que c'est eux qui prescrivent.
Doctors will tell you that it's them that prescribe, but it's totally false. They prescribe things that are chosen by drug users, but as long as drugs aren't legalized, there will always be a problem. For example, with those treatments which are partially used as drugs. And so we also work with all that is linked to what we call sanitary democracy, which is the politically correct term to name what concerns patients, which is a term that is a big problem for us, because there are a lot of drug users that absolutely don't consider themselves as sick.
Un terme qui nous pose problème à nous, puisque un certain nombre de gens qui utilisent des drogues ne se reconnaissent absolument pas comme malades. Mais
so that's the only possibility to exist officially, because the association that I run auto support for drug users is objectively an association of criminals, because the use is criminalized, and we all say that we use drugs. But the AIDS epidemic permitted the creation of this contradiction, even this paradox, that this association of criminals is still institutionalized, subsidized by the state, has a certain voice in the drug policy in France.
Voir ce paradoxe qui fait que cette association de criminels est quand même institutionnalisée, financée par l'État, reconnue, à une certaine voix au niveau de la politique des drogues en France.
Deuxième question, par
A second question with curiosity. In France, how does the French government go about things? Is there needle distribution, centers for safe injection sites? What's been put into place in France by the state?
En France, par l'État ou par les départements?
Alors le terme qui fait scandale, c'est local d'injection.
So the term that scandalizes is safe injection site, the last part of your sentence, because it has recently made a big debate. Because we wanted to open a safe injection site, and we realized that French law wouldn't let us. Because the law prohibits the use of narcotics. So they realized this at the end, because all the process was already underway. I have a colleague here who would talk about this better than I, because she was the director of the project.
J'ai une collègue qui est là qui vous en parlera bien mieux que moi parce que c'est la directrice du programme. Donc voilà, en France, c'est comme d'habitude le pire et le meilleur.
So in France, like always, there's always the best and the worst.
On est parmi les meilleurs
the worst because I think, for example, in regards to substitution programs, we're among the best in the world because there's more than 160,000 people on a substitution program. And with very liberal conditions, because you only have to go to a prescribing doctor, you go into his office, and 10 minutes later you come out with a prescription for a month's worth of opiates. And I think that in the world, there's only Belgium that does the same.
Au monde, à mon avis, il n'y a pas d'autre équivalent. Et c'est un succès planétaire puisqu'on a.
And it's a planetary success because we've totally stopped the transmission of HIV because of these programs. We have almost no overdoses, only a few hundred instead of several thousand. And many people have adjusted or have fallen into line with society, with a job, kids, etc.
Et donc beaucoup de gens sont régularisés, se sont mis aux normes de la société sociale avec un travail, des enfants, etc. Donc de ce côté-là, c'est plutôt 9-8 sur 10.
So on that front, it's about an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But concerning repression, it's a catastrophe. What I mean by that is that cannabis users are bombarded, especially when they live in the peripheral zones and they belong to an ethnic minority. The repression is one of the strongest in the world for the use of cannabis. So that's really the French paradox.
Parmi une des plus fortes du monde sur l'usage de cannabis. Donc ouais, ça c'est toujours pareil, c'est le paradoxe français. Voilà.
En tout cas, je vous remercie, c'est fort aimable. Je vous souhaite une bonne suite pour la conférence.
Thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference here in Basel.
Radio éphémère.
Oui, bonjour, Boris pour Radio FMR. J'aimerais bien vous poser quelques questions
Hi, this is
sur les
Boris
testings.
for FMR Radio. I would like to ask you a few questions about drug testing. So here you test ecstasy and other products, but how do you test them? During parties?
On a un laboratoire mobile.
Yes, we have a mobile laboratory and we use it with a group of social workers who do harm reduction. Our stand is together with the stands for harm reduction. There are flyers, there's a team of social workers, and there's us that do the drug testing.
La table de diminution de risque en fin de compte. Il y a des dépliants, il y a une équipe de travailleurs sociaux et puis il y a nous qu'on fait les tests.
Dans les produits qui sont testés,
with the products that are tested, I know that one thing that is often lacking is advice for people who are having a bad trip or something.
Un laboratoire mobile. On analyse la substance.
We're a mobile laboratory, so we analyze the substance and we talk about the substance. It's the quality of the substance. If there's an individual reaction, it's for the person to decide. If that person is of legal age and they know what they're taking.
Si elle connaît la chose.
en fait, vous arrivez à déterminer.
So you can determine how pure it is. Is that it?
On peut faire ce qu'on peut faire.
Yes, we can do the quality. We can look at what there is, what mix there is,
c'est
and what
l'avantage de notre
quantity.
système parce que
But that's the advantage of our system because it's a modern laboratory, which means that we can also detect the substances that we don't know.
C'est-à-dire qu'on a un signal, même si on ne peut pas le détecter sur place.
You can tell what it's been cut with.
Non, pas les coupes. Les coupes, je ne vois que les substances actives.
No, not the cuts. We only see the active substances.
Lactose ou bien le
Lactose or sugar are things that are just fillers we won't see, but there's no effect from these products except if they're
injected. Il n'y a pas d'effet
injected.
avec ces substances-là, sauf que des trucs mécaniques. Les problèmes s'ils injectent.
quand tu récupères la
With
caféine.
caffeine, there's an
Oui, la
effect.
caféine, je la vois, mais la
Caffeine, I
caféine,
can
c'est
detect.
un
It's
agent
an
actif.
active
Oui,
agent.
d'accord.
Ça, c'est une question simplement du détecteur que j'ai.
This is simply a question of the
Les extasies
detector
sont
that I have
la
on the system.
caféine, le speed en tout cas.
Ecstasy is often
Speed,
made
oui.
with caffeine,
La caféine,
speed as well.
Non, je
il y a
parle
de
plutôt
temps
de
en
speed, là.
temps, il y a de temps en temps.
Speed,
de la
yes.
caféine
There's
dans les-
caffeine
dans
in
les-
pills
dans
from
les
time to
pilules,
time, but
mais
we
ça,
know
on
very
connaît
well
très
the
bien
quality
la
of the pills we
qualité
find in
des
Switzerland
pilules
because we're
sur le marché
regularly
en Suisse,
confronted
parce
with
que
this market,
on est
which is
souvent,
more
on est
interesting than if we
régulièrement
do
sur
a
le marché.
campaign
C'est ce
for a
qui est plus
year and then we
intéressant
stop.
que si on fait une
In
campagne
the
d'une
15
année et qu'on
years that we've
s'arrête.
been doing drug testing.
Mais en 15 ans qu'on fait des tests sur le
Et puis vous pensez quoi sur la qualité?
And what do you
maintenant
think
de-
now about the quality of MDMA?
Vous voyez là notre poster.
Ouais.
Well, you see our
Ce qui est
poster here.
intéressant que
What's interesting
pendant
is that in
les
the last 10 years, the average
10 ans,
quality of the
la
ecstasy was
qualité,
at.
la moyenne des pilules d'ecstasy, des comprimés
What's interesting is that in the last 10 years, the average quality of the ecstasy was at 80 milligrams. And in the last year and a half, there have been an increase that we can't explain. We can only observe that the
on
average
a
is
eu
now
un
close to
effet,
120
une augmentation
milligrams.
qu'on n'explique pas, mais on constate simplement que la moyenne est montée. Maintenant, elle frise déjà les 120 mg.
And we're also there to warn people because there have been problems with excessive
nous, on est
doses. Because we
évidemment aussi
have
là
all
pour
the
les
pills
mises
that
en
have
garde.
a
Il y a des
quantity
problèmes de
that's
surdosage.
over 120
Parce que
milligrams.
nous, on
They go on
a
the
toutes les
website to
pilules
warn
qui ont
people. It's
un
important.
dosage qui dépasse les 120 mg. Ils viennent sur le site internet pour les mises en garde.
Oui, c'est bien.
Ouais. Parce qu'on dit que, évidemment, on dit
120, it's not enormous, but it's
pour une
not
fille,
bad.
c'est déjà trop. Hein? Parce que ça va à
For
milligrammes.
a girl, it's
par
already too much
poids
because we count a
client.
milligram for each
Alors, si c'est une
kilogram
fille qui
that
fait
the person
50
weighs.
kilos,
So if it's a
ou bien
girl
un
that
gars
weighs
qui fait
50
80
kilograms
kilos,
or a guy that weighs 80, they're not in the same
au même
situation.
stade.
Non, bien sûr.
Mais ça, c'est ça le
Il y a
problème.
aussi une question de connaissance.
There's also a
On
question of
déjà
knowledge. If we've already
Moi, je
taken
connais
it
des gens
before,
qui
I know
font des
people
petits
who are really
gabarits,
small that can take big
qui
quantities,
prennent
but I agree with you.
Mais je suis
Ça,
d'accord
c'est
avec
aussi
vous
des-
sur la...
Nous, on peut évidemment, on a souvent des jeunes qui ne connaissent peu ou
We
rien du
often
tout
have young
au
people who
sujet.
know very little or
Il faut bien
nothing
voir
about the
ça.
subject.
C'est
It's important to
pas la
remember
qualité,
this.
c'est pas
It's
la
not the quality
qualité
of the
des
drugs
drogues
that's the
qui est le
big
gros
problem.
problème,
It's the
c'est le
person using
consommateur
them.
lui-même.
People who don't know
Les
anything
gens
on
qui
the
ne connaissent
subject,
rien
who
du
don't read
sur
any
le
of the
sujet,
literature,
qui
and that don't
regardent pas
ask around to
littérature,
know what the quality
et
is,
puis
they're
ils
the
ne
ones
demandent
who
pas à
risk
gauche
the
et à
most.
droite comment elle est la qualité, ben, c'est eux qui risquent le plus.
Le
Le week-end
testing...
passé, on a testé dans une
Last summer, we tested in a hardstyle
il y avait
party
beaucoup
where there
d'amphétamine.
was a lot
Alors, il
of
y avait un groupe qui avait des...
amphetamine. Normally in Switzerland, the
Normalement,
speed is
en
15%
Suisse,
amphetamine,
le
50%
speed, il
caffeine,
est
and the
à
rest is
15% d'amphétamine, 50% de caféine, et le reste, c'est de la...
lactose or
Non,
medication.
pas de médicaments, c'est simplement le
No, not
lactose ou
medication,
bien du
simply
mannitol, le
lactose.
truc comme ça.
And there's a group that came with
Et
several
puis, il y a
samples at
un groupe qui est
95%
venu avec
amphetamines.
plusieurs échantillons à 90% d'amphétamine. Ouais.
Oh, nice.
Ouais, si on le sait. Mais quand
Yes, if we know it, if you're in the habit of taking it.
Quand tu as l'habitude de prendre...
It was a paste like toothpaste?
Non, elle était tout à fait
No, it
sec.
was totally dry. Powder?
Poudre.
Yes, a powder.
Non.
And we put it in
On la met dans
ecstasy
des
that's over
extasies qui
220
dépassent
milligrams. That's already a lot.
C'est déjà beaucoup, ça.
Ah, merci beaucoup.
Thanks very much.
C'était chouette.
It was really nice to talk to you about this. Goodbye.
Morphine, ecstasy,
marihuana,
méthadone,
tranxilium,
tranxilium,
dormicum,
alcohol, vodka,
tabaco,
cigarette,
deporte,
doping, fashion,
sex,
pornography, fast food,
televisión,
Wi-Fi,
Internet,
video games,
gasolina,
benzin, kreditkarte,
trabajo, dinero,
addiction.
yo soy adictiva.
Alors, je m'appelle Martine Baudin et je suis directrice de l'association
Hi,
Première
my name is
Ligne
Martine Baudin,
à
and I'm the
Genève,
director
qui
of the
gère
association
notamment le
Première Ligne
Kineuf, un
in
espace
Geneva
d'accueil et de
that runs a safe
consultation.
injection
Alors,
site, the
c'est
Kineuf.
clair qu'à Genève, on a toujours
It's clear that in Geneva, we've always believed and we've always defended the implication of drug users in projects, whether they are punctual or more long-term. We consider them experts and direct partners, which is one of the bases for harm reduction.
Et je crois qu'on a vraiment
And we've
tenté
always
de
tried
mener
to
nos
do
actions
so.
dans ce sens-là, en considérant les usagers comme des partenaires directs, experts de leur consommation, avec un parcours de vie, avec experts des
They're the experts of their drug use with a life story, experts of the different products, much more so than the professionals. That's how we opened the K9. We had professionals that weren't drug injectors, and it was the drug users that taught us how to prepare the products, and the rest that allowed the professionals afterwards to formulate the harm reduction messages.
Nos messages de réduction des risques. Alors c'est vrai qu'à Genève, quand on a ouvert le K9, c'est un espace d'accueil.
So it's true that when we opened the K9, it's a space with about 50 square meters, and we always dreamed about doing projects with drug users, which we couldn't do before 91 in Geneva because we were in a needle exchange bus. So when we opened the K9, we thought, great, now we'll be able to start projects with drug users. We dreamed about a drug users association. We offered time that we called collective times. There were even people from the committee that came from the association to say to the drug users, tell us what your needs are. We can offer you logistics and a legal entity to support you. And we did this for many years, and it's true that even though we had some beginnings, we had few possibilities to pursue this in the long term. I don't think it's because of a lack of desire from drug users that we met. Clearly not. But they were very caught up by an active drug use because the K9 is a space for drug use. And so the people were occasional, but mostly daily drug users, and so caught up with this before everything else.
On a rencontré clairement pas, mais pris par une consommation active, puisque le K9 est un lieu pour consommer. Donc c'était des gens qui étaient dans des consommations, que ce soit occasionnelles, mais quand même plutôt quotidiennes, et donc pris par ça avant tout. Et puis effectivement ceux qui pouvaient aussi.
And so those who could mobilize themselves in drug user associations or other projects are people that, in theory, should have a better management of their drug use. And for those people, at least in Geneva, to return in our space for projects, but with the possibility to use downstairs, and so also drugs that are circulating, was, I think, influences that were too important in relation to a desire to use or a bit of fragility, where I've managed not to use for the last 3 weeks, but it's not easy to carry on.
Étaient, je crois, des influences trop importantes par rapport à des besoins de consommer ou des bouts de fragilité autour de j'arrive à arrêter depuis 3 semaines, mais c'est pas simple de tenir le coup. Donc voilà, mais ce que nous on a vraiment fait, à défaut d'un vrai groupe.
So what we did in the absence of a real drug users association was that we really included drug users in many activities. They work at the bar in the K9. They do needle cleanup. All of the activities where we can implicate directly drug users, we do so. We've done moving, and without them we'd never have been able to move our stuff. We try to involve them in all of the general assemblies. We trained drug users in CPR 10 years ago, and we're doing this again this year to allow them to be trained.
On relance cette année pour permettre aux usagers d'être formés.
So on one hand, there's an involvement of drug users in the operating of a day center where they can say what they think, they can bring their ideas, or in the events of the association and the desire to train drug users in CPR and harm reduction, so that they can also be able to distribute needles and to deliver messages that are adequate. We even did a test with peers in the injection room that was very interesting, with an evaluation at the end. So there you go. We really try to pursue this direction in our projects. We have a nightlife project. We have just hired one drug user to work as a stand of this project. We really want to continue in this direction.
On a fait même un test d'usagers pairs en salle de consommation, qui était très intéressant, avec une évaluation qui a eu lieu. Donc voilà, nous on essaye de vraiment poursuivre dans ce sens-là, dont les actions. On a l'action au milieu festif. On vient d'engager un usager qui consomme en tant qu'intervenant au stand de l'action. Voilà, on veut vraiment continuer dans ce sens-là.
Voilà. Moi, je ne comprends toujours pas pourquoi les drogues sont classées.
I still don't know why drugs are classified according to their legality instead of their dangerousness. Unfortunately, the law leads people to believe that, for example, medication won't lead to a dependency, but only to a simple treatment, which can be very untrue. For example, legal benzodiazepines are much worse than marijuana or hash that today are still illegal.
Qu'elle reste encore illégale de nos jours. Voilà, comme je le dis encore une fois, on reste sur notre.
And so I say again that we're still hungry for more, but FMR radio is not totally ephemeral. It will be back.
Alors, moi je vous dis juste.
So I just say to you, see you soon, and I hope you enjoyed our show.
Radio FMR.
Radio éphémère, radio éphémère.
Radio éphémère.